you, and I'm not Carson Brunn, sadly. We'll miss his pretty face. But I want to welcome you all here to the SGA debates today. I'm very excited to see all the candidates, and I'm excited to see your opinions and your vote coming up next. Okay, we're going to start with the presidential candidates, so if we can have them on the stage right now. Fantastic, everyone looks very nice. And I love the hoodie. We're going to start with introductions first before we get into the debate and opening statements. So whoever wants to go first, please introduce yourself, your pronouns, your major, and any involvement you have on campus. This is your time to shine. So.
Oh, I think so. This is on mute. I was just all right. Hey everyone. I'm Elliot Gary. I use they, them pronouns. I am a member of the class of 2026 for the Masters in Organizational Leadership program. Past involvement includes spending this year as the SGA treasurer, as well as being the executive director for the campus activities board for 2 years, and a variety of other officer positions on HSO, Taylor Swift Society, and several other organizations.
Thank you, Elliot. Nice to meet y'all. I'm Christian. I'm a computer science major, creative writing minor. I'm the president and founder of PTI, Pioneer Tech Innovators. I'm an academic coach here, and I've been on SGA for about 2 years, since 2023. And yeah, I'm running for president, and that's all. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Riley Mahan, he, him pronouns, class of 2027 political science program. I'm a 2-term senator, and I'm the co-president and founder of the Young Eco-Socialists of Point Park, also known as YES. And if you want solar panels on school buildings, you should vote for me.
Fantastic! Very qualified people up here, so now we're going to get into the debates. I'm going to go one by one, calling out your names, and we're going to start with opening statements. For opening statements, who wants to go first before we get into the juicy stuff? Start with Elliot.
All right. Hello again, everyone. My general platform for my candidacy for SGA president is creating a better pathway of open communication between our students and our administration. I think a lot of things get lost in translation, unfortunately, whenever they're put in place at the university, and I want to serve as the doorway between these two groups of people, because understanding each other is very important, and open communication is something that I really strongly encourage between everyone. I'd also focus greatly on diversity, and specifically ensuring that Point Park protects the diversity initiatives within our power federally at the moment, and really focuses on making sure that Point Park is a great space for everybody who attends it and everybody who could possibly attend it in the future.
All right.
Thank you. I'm running on something similar in communication. I'm running on the Inside Out initiatives, as I call it. So inside, I want to better communicate with SGA and to the students and through the administration. And I want to hold town meetings every week alongside SGA meetings. I want our meetings out in the open, and I just want better visibility within the campus community, whether that means SGA UView television, SGA comms on the globe, SGA everything, and in between. I also, outwards, I want to enhance Point Park's visibility and get our school community involved in initiatives outside campus, including downtown. And I want to enhance public awareness of public safety and maintenance of facility infrastructure. So, thank you.
Yes, so it's become a bit of a meme, but my big thing is and kind of always has been sustainability issues and like reducing waste. And yeah, like part of that is I do want to try to see what we can do as a student government to push the facilities of the university to use is to use more renewable energy and less like dirty energy. You know, any sort of initiatives that we could take to make that happen is something I think that we should heavily prioritize. Also, you know, reducing the use of single-use plastics and such on campus is also very important. The other big thing right now, of course, is, you know, with the Trump administration kind of taking an axe to a lot of the DEI stuff and the making student loans more expensive. We do have to kind of see what we can do as an organization to fight back against it. I don't know how much power we have over that, but I do know that it's not nothing since we're a private organization. So those are like my two really big things that I am concerned about, that I would prioritize as president. I would also like to see SGA become more proactive in getting feedback from students as opposed to just kind of like making it known that we're here and we will accept feedback. I think it's important that we are seen out there more often, actively soliciting feedback, because I think that's a much better way to get an idea of what is actually representative of the student body's opinion.
All right, thank you guys. We are going to start with our first question. Keep this brief and short. This whole debate will be around 10 minutes for the president, then we'll move on to the vice presidents. And what I want to know, what people want to know, is how do you interpret Point Park's president of SGA? How do you interpret the role to be?
I would say my interpretation of the SGA president role is kind of like what I mentioned in my opening statement. This role serves as a bridge and really funnels all of the issues that are most important to students into something that is more easily presented to our administration and someone who stands up for what students are really looking for. I think that, you know, the president has to be someone who is open to finding the most like prioritized issues and pushing those forward in particular, and, you know, trying to serve the students to the best of their ability while working with administration.
It's really well put. I do agree. Yeah, it's the president's job is really to push initiatives of their constituents, the students, and really be a role model and motivator to the freshmen and new senators coming in, and really make SGA itself an organization that you want to be part of and that you want to see make good change in the campus community.
I think I would agree that the role of the president is primarily as like a bridge between the administration and the students, but I would also add that I think that we should work to have the student government become also a bridge between the students and just the greater Pittsburgh community. I would like to see us do more things like community service oriented, like I know the work that many organizations on campus do with the Red Door, like those types of initiatives I would like to see us do more of. I think that like the primary role of the student government is and should be to advocate for the students' interests to be reflected in the decisions that the administration is making. Not that they aren't, but that you know, it's important to have that voice in the room to make sure that everybody is on the same page about what the students' interests actually are.
All right, fantastic. Let's go into the hot topic. What qualities do you possess that make you better than this year's president? Any character challenges? Anything you see lacking? Personal threats?
Okay. I'm going to be incredibly detailed. No, truthfully, one of the main reasons that I was driven to apply for SGA this year was because of the leadership that we have this year. I think that this duo has done an incredible job at, you know, serving the students well and really putting a great reputation with SGA. I think that something that, from my character, that really fits this position is my experience and my knowledge of university. As a graduate student who also attended Point Park for their undergrad, I have been here for about 5 years, and this year that we're going forward into will be my 6th. And so I think that having the extra knowledge of having worked with all these people for many years, having all these relationships already established, is what really makes me an excellent candidate for the position.
Yeah, there's no, this is not a hit on the current administration, but I think the previous administration did very well, and of course we're in close ties with them, and Mark's always hitting me up and talking to me, and I think we can really benefit from mixing both administrations up, learning from both, and I'm highly motivated to just meet everyone around here, meet the administration, and yeah, I think we can do good things, and yeah, I'm excited to learn and do good.
Well, I will hold senator trainings at some point. But yeah, I think that, so I'm a sophomore here. So in my freshman year, of course, it was, Mark and Trevor and Frankie who were pretty much kind of running everything. And as I understand it, they kind of brought student government back from the brink of total collapse from neglect of previous administrations. And of course, Kyle and Dylan and the rest of the executive cabinet that we've had this year has done a really good job in continuing that, and I would like to continue with that. I think that student government is an extremely important body on campus that we would really be much, much worse off without. The other thing is that I, as a sophomore, will be able to continue to run in this role for re-election for a couple times. If that is something that people value, I would be able to build up more kind of experience and comfort in the shoes of this role over that amount of time than people who are going to be graduating after this term. Not that that's a diss on you guys or anything, but if we're talking about what makes us unique as candidates, I would say that is my main selling point.
Okay, so, also forgot to say this, let's try to limit our answers to 30 seconds. You have been doing a really good job of that. I just want to keep track of time. 2, the past administrations have done really good work. They've actually implemented a lot of good things. To my experience of my past 3 years here, including the bus passes and other things that they've worked on, what do you see as a realistic goal to get done in your potential term?
I'm really looking to further our student involvement. I think that we have already kind of started pushing that forward as I've been helpful with the implementation of a graduate student activity fee, which will hopefully go into effect next year. But I think generally bringing in our students who are underserved is going to be very big for me. Those commuters are graduate students. They're part of our community too, and I think that they should be recognized a little bit more.
Yeah, the first thing I want to focus on primarily is the communication within SGA. Bring back we had a Discord server last year, some kind of Slack or something like that, to get more senators in the know and all of that. But I also want to focus on my outside initiative. I would like to see something similar to the Ohio State Government Summit, sort of like a Pittsburgh Government Summit, but at Point Park. So that's something I'd like to look into and see if we can get done.
So I was talking with a mortuary sciences major the other day, and something that they told me was that they really need the bus passes to work over the summer for some of the programs that they have to take at, I think, places called PIMS that are not offered here that they need for their degree. So I think that's I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit because it's important, and I'm sure it's going to be difficult to get through, but I think it's a very achievable goal that we could set, is to make the bus passes stay over the summer. that would help out, everybody on campus, I think, who is not leaving the city over the summer, which is I think we are a majority commuter student body, so that's not a huge number of people. And I think that's a really important thing. The other thing is, of course, the renewable energy stuff. That's going to be a really big undertaking. It's probably going to take a couple of years to go through, but we can get started on it this upcoming year, and I think that even just that would be really important.
Going off of that, I think an important question that I also personally want to know as a student at Point Park is the divisiveness of Chris Brasalis's administration here at Point Park. There's been a lot of raised questions from the Trump administration as well. What perspective are you going to take to collaborate with the administration?
I think my perspective is focused on just that, being collaborative. Truthfully, we just had a meeting where President Brasalis was in attendance, and it was really useful for us to get to see him on that level. Really, everyone here does care about Point Park students and their experiences, and most of the times they're limited by external factors. And so that is kind of something that I want to open up more, is that communication between us and our level of involvement and our level of constituency at the university with the administration and their ability to make those changes that are important to us.
Yeah, I think they truly want what's best for the student body, even though we might not agree at times, but I do think open lines of communication is the best way to go about it. Mutual respect on both sides is always great. I do want to bring back monthly SGA reports, something that we can bring over to the administration with boatloads of data and everything to back up our initiatives and problems and issues. So I think that would be beneficial.
I think it does go back to, everybody does have the best interests of the students in mind, but it's important that everybody is on the same page about what those interests are, because I think it's really easy to say that everybody wants what's best, right? That's not ever the place where people disagree. The place where people disagree is on what is best and how best to implement it. So I have not seen any super major clashes with the administration over that as far as I can remember. And I think it's important that we keep it that way as much as we can. But in regards to the kind of divisiveness of it, and the people are being scared about the Trump administration and such, I do think it's important that we understand that this is a political body and that that's not a bad thing, and that doesn't have to be a divisive thing. It simply means that we are utilizing our power to advocate for ourselves.
Okay, moving on to how you would do as president and overseeing the whole of your executive cabinet, what role do you see your executive cabinet playing into how you care for the student body?
Yeah, I always see these presidential and president equivalent positions as almost being advisory. My goal, and anytime I serve as the president of an organization, is to help my fellow members grow in their leadership abilities, to grow in their different soft skill areas, and to really flourish as student leaders. So that's the position that I would typically take for any kind of leadership, and particularly this one, to ensure that my cabinet members feel they are getting what they need out of the experience and also serving the organization.
Yeah, the executive cabinet of SGA is pretty much the lifeblood. You can't come up to the presidency and do it alone. You have to have everything. There's so much we have to do, and I'm excited to be a role model and leader for them. Similar to the previous administration, we did a good job at that. Yeah, an advisory role is essential. And there's a lot of duties, so we got to pick the right people. And yeah.
So I guess I am a person who really believes in decentralized decision making, and to that end, I think it's important for the president to not act as like the main, like, first leader above everybody else. I think it's really important that the executive cabinet is understood as like a co-governing body, where like maybe the president is the first among equals in some way, but I do think that it's really important that everybody is working together towards the same goal, and that those goals are decided upon together and not just by one person.
Okay, we have our final question before closing statements. Your classic interview question. What were the challenges you faced when delegating work to other members of your organization? It could be any organization. And how did you overcome this? Second question, what are your strengths and how will you uplift them?
So something particularly with my position this year is that I was the numbers person, and nobody else wants to be the numbers person ever. So a lot of times I felt like I could be siloed and didn't really want to delegate any sort of work to my fellow cabinet members or anything, but over my experience here, I've come to learn that even though the topic isn't as fun as some of the other positions, people do want to help out and they do care about the things that I'm working on. So that's been my experience with that. My strengths, truthfully, are my communication. I chat up everyone all the time, and I'm always making sure that people are on the same page. So I think that's really important in this role, especially when you're leading such a large group of people.
Very well said. Yeah, I personally find it very hard to delegate work because I like to see everything that's happening, see how it gets done, and make sure it does get done. So I find that a little difficult. That's something I can definitely work on. But I think it's very important to get everyone involved, not just have like a couple here and there. It's important that everyone has a role to play and be motivated to contribute.
Definitely, I think the biggest challenge in the organizations that I've been having is getting people to respond to me, which I think is a problem for anybody in a leadership position that is, overseeing an organization with a lot of people. And the way to overcome that is just to keep nagging them and don't leave them alone if they aren't responding. This is certainly something that I have dealt with both in school-related positions and in political positions outside of school, that that problem doesn't really ever go away, and I think that it's probably one of the most important skills for a leader to have, to keep hitting those people up until they tell you that they don't want to have the position anymore, or until they do the thing they said they were going to do. Yeah, that's all I really have to say about that.
What a journalistic point of view. Okay, we're going to go on to closing statements. Around a minute to 3 minutes if you can. All right.
I'll put this as a blanket statement. I love this university. Obviously, I wouldn't still be here after I graduated if I didn't. And I think that translates really well into this position. Particularly, I've found kind of my calling in SGA this year, helping student interests. I very well could have spent the whole year just working with my numbers, giving out budgets, and doing what I had to do. But I found myself getting really involved in things like the graduate student activity fee, like working with Dean Palo to have Point Park recognized as downtown residence with Pittsburgh parking. Lots of things that are going to have a really long-lasting impact, I think, for our students. And I want to continue to be able to do that for everyone who lives here, who learns here. And I think that my knowledge, my experience, the ways that I communicate, and the ways that I lead people all lend themselves very well to this position and to what SGA means to this university as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's the best part of this. It's having an impact on everyone around you. What you do can have a huge impact, and just the flexibility of it all. You can do it however you like and however it needs needs to be done. And really excited for that creative vision. So I think I can't really tell you what is going to happen, but I'm excited to run it, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like, this university is like our home for the next couple of years, right? So like you guys are our people, and I care about the interests of people here. I hope that I would do a good job at, advocating for your interests and, looking out for you. I think it's really important that we all stick together and care about each other in times like this, which is like, things are really uncertain and really scary right now. And I hope that, through this work and through this position, right, that like people will continue to find some hope and be able to like build their skills through to, continue to organize outside of school to make our world better. I think that's what this all comes down to, right, is making our world better, even if it's at like a small university level. That's what this position is really about.
Okay, let's give it up. Clap, clap. Audience questions now. Anything you want to know? Anything you want to see from your candidates up here? Okay.
Wait.
Kyle?
So, you guys kind of already spoke about initiatives that you were interested in. What do you think is going to be sort of like the first thing you want to get started on, like as soon as you get elected, as soon as like the summer session sort of hits?
I really want to wrap up the work that I previously mentioned on working with Pittsburgh Parking Authority. Parking has been one of our issues for a long time, and even if it isn't building us a brand new parking lot for us to use, I think that this is a step in the right direction of making our parking more localized and cheaper for students.
I think I would probably look into the Pittsburgh Summit, also as well as revitalizing the Boulevard. I know that's big in Chris's vision, so in any way I can help with that, I would be interested. So.
This might not be a super interesting answer, but I think that the most important thing for me or whoever is elected president to do first thing after the summer is to, get the housekeeping stuff, so to speak, out of the way. Like having the senator trainings, having people to help take care of the fish tank because I cannot do that on my own again. That sort of thing, right? Making sure that everybody is doing their office hours, making sure that we have the best possible executive cabinet that we can to who's like serious, about improving the school.
We have some student questions from the years before, and I think this question, also leading on to Chris Casales' term as president of this university, it's needed now more than ever. So, how do you plan to bridge the information and hierarchical gap between students and administration? AKA, how do you plan to give students more of a say in what happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, I actually, for one of my classes, did an analysis of Point Park's change management model and how it distributes information to students. So I kind of have a plan ready to go and present to Chris. If elected, obviously we'll hand that over to both of my fellow candidates should they be elected. But I think that it's all about kind of what we talked about earlier, having those places that are specific and purposeful for students to air their concerns directly to the administration and be able to talk directly to them instead of like kind of having our more digital methods of communication we've been using. I think the personal touch is going to be really important for that.
I think finding a good balance between saying nothing at all and pestering them to death. I think calling them is very, very effective. I really don't have any plan like that in place, but I think the best I can do is be a facilitator. And definitely look into those infrastructure improvements with the community, like posters, like places to go. And maybe we can even make that into a place where administration can stop by, maybe hand out those reports, like slip them under their doors, so they have to look at them, but it's really all about visibility and just getting them to pay attention. It's all about the attention.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
How do you plan to bridge the information and hierarchical gap between students and administration? AKA, how do you plan to give students more of a say in what happens behind the scenes?
I think that comes back to us as SGA being more proactive in soliciting feedback from students. I think the most important thing we can do is to make sure that we are in constant communication with other student leaders and other organizations. And while we're tabling as well, making sure that we are letting our constituency guide us towards what things they want us to prioritize and raise to the administration. And I think it's really important that we communicate all of the information that we receive from the administration to the student body through tabling and through our communications with other student organization leaders.
Okay, I have one final question that I think was also very on topic as well. You guys talk about being proactive and having plans. How will you manage to be in an executive role in SGA while also being a student, having a job and other life intricacies? It's very important. While we do say we're going to be proactive, are you really going to be proactive?
Yeah, I am a planner through and through, always have been, kind of always will be. Time management is always one of my biggest strengths that I talk about in standard interviews. But I think that taking the time over the summer whenever there aren't as many things happening right here, right now, and the students are, most of the students are away for break, is going to be really, really important. My first plans over the summer are to create a giant calendar that we can use throughout the year, communicate with my exec cabinet to get some of our larger events scheduled and ready to go, and so that way we can focus on student issues while still maintaining the things that we do every year.
I think it sounds like a great plan. But I will say I'm the complete opposite. I am not a very good planner, but that is why I will facilitate that to the ones around me. That falls on to my executive cabinet and hopefully my advisors. So I will do my best, but of course sometimes, yeah. I will also have more time next year. So there's that.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I was saying earlier about the president not being a boss, but just being a leader, and kind of co-governing with all of the exec cab members. Because, look, I'm not going to pretend that I can guarantee that I'm not going to get burned out, but that's what the rest of exec cab is there for, right? I'm not the best at time management and managing myself, but I am really good at delegating things to other people and being in communication with other people, right? And so I think that is why it's so important to have an executive cabinet who, are people that, you can trust to step up when you're not at your best. And that in turn, they can trust you to step up when they're not at their best, right? Because college is busy, life is busy, and I think it's important that we go in knowing that and having a plan to deal with that.
All right, thank you guys so much. Let's give some applause. And now it's time for our vice presidential debate.
I have to leave and do outside school politics now. Bye.
Alrighty, thank you.
We're gonna do the same thing over again. All right, so we're gonna start. Let's give some introduction before we get to the opening statements. Introduce yourself, give your pronouns, your class ranking, your major, and all that jazz, or anything like that.
Hi, my name is Madigan Dowell. I'm a fourth-year student here, graduating class of 2026. I'm a business management and entrepreneurship major, and my pronouns are she, they. This is coming up on the end of my first year in student government. This is kind of a departure from my previous leadership positions, which were mostly held in theater. But because of this, I feel I have a lot of time management skills, confidence, and organization skills that would be very beneficial to this organization.
Hi, my name is Sienna Wraith, and I am a class of 2028 History Political Science dual major. I use they, them, or he, him pronouns. I'm also coming up on the end of my first year as an SGA senator, and I'm also currently president of the Point Park Tabletop Role Playing Club. And because it's my first year, during high school, I also ran a club on my own, and have also held several prominent leadership positions throughout my life.
Fantastic. We're going to get to opening statements now. Keep this under 3 minutes and we'll get to the questions.
So as I just went over, I think that my biggest skills that I can bring to this administration is time management, confidence, and my planning skills. I'm running with Elliot Geary. We're a ticket together, although that's not really an official thing you can do through the voting site. But I feel that my role in this as a vice president would be to just support and uphold the current administration and help get initiatives that the student body wants done.
I think the biggest strengths I also bring to the table are communication. I've got a lot of experience in leadership. And I also bring forward a new perspective because not only am I very new to Point Park, I am also very new to the city of Pittsburgh itself, considering I come from very far out of the state of Pennsylvania. So I think bringing a new perspective on Point Park from a new generation of students just starting to come into being adults and being out on their own for the first time is very valuable and would shine a light on new issues, allow me to better improve Point Park and bring it into a more modern age. And I would also be responsible during my time as a vice president to support the initiatives of anyone who ever gets elected as president because I'm running alone.
All right, we're going to get to the questions now. Let's keep this under 30 seconds for each one. We have a doozy. So the first two questions are going to be pretty much the same for the presidential debate. So the first one is, how do you interpret the role of vice president?
I think that the vice president is mainly there to support the president as well as keep things organized and running both in the executive cabinet as well as in legislative body meetings. Something that I think that our current vice president Dylan has done really well is keeping everyone's head on even when it's really hard.
Yeah, I honestly agree with that. I think the vice president's role is to, again, support the president, but I also think it's to be almost in the background, doing the things that you don't really see getting done, that the president can be out there doing things. The vice president's role is to work in the background, work on the smaller things that also need to be done, and making sure that everything is in order, again, both in running legislative body meetings, but also being there for exec cab meetings, and just being there to support the president, to help support the other members of exec cab.
Despite our love for the current administration, what qualities do you possess that make you better than this year's vice president? And in other words, what were some character challenges you saw in this year's president and how you'd be different?
I don't know if I see any challenges that Dylan has faced, but I think that I think Dylan has done a great job being vice president. I think that I've learned a lot from him, and there are only ways that I would like to improve upon what Dylan has laid. Dylan and Trevor, from what I've seen, have laid the foundation of what vice president means to this organization.
Yeah, I also think that Dylan has done a very good job as being a vice president, considering he's the only vice president of Point Park's SGA I've seen in action. So that is my one weak spot, is that Dylan's the only one I've ever seen in action, but I think he's done again, a very amazing job as a vice president, making sure that ledge meetings run very smoothly and that things that happen in the background are happening when they happen. I think one of my very, very small things is maybe I think that the current administration did was a lot of initiatives that were very good things that need to happen were taken on, but I think it might have been a little bit too much, which might have forestalled some things. So I think that my only thing would be to take on less initiatives, but make sure they're still impactful and happening.
All right, how will you train your senators to be better representatives to the student body?
I'd like to start with having senator training, something I've never seen happen before. What that entails, I have no idea. I've never gone through senator training, but I think we should implement it.
Again, we just haven't had senator training. I wasn't trained as a senator, so it was like fumbling around in the dark and just having to rely on the experience and guidance from older senators. And I think that a very useful thing that if we did, that when we do implement senator trainings, which I think the both of us will be very eager to actually do, is implement almost like a mentorship program where you can learn from older senators, figure out, okay, what do office hours like? What am I actually supposed to be doing during office hours? Because there are times where I've gone into an office hour and have no clue what I should actually be working on or what needs to be done in the office. And I think that a per senator training would be like laying out what does the actual role of being a senator, like how do you properly represent your constituents? Got rid of my next question. So the next question is, how do you feel you and your colleagues can work with the president to resolve issues?
I feel that out of all of the people that I know that are going to most likely be up for executive cabinet positions, many of which are people sitting in this room in the running, I think that all of these people certainly get along well enough to continue running this executive cabinet well. And I think that through open communication and guided, open floor conversations, we can hear everyone's voices and come to conclusions that work best, not just for the president and the vice president, but for everyone in the executive cabinet, everyone that's a senator, and hopefully everyone that we're representing in the student body.
Yeah, again, I think that because everyone who would be interested in running, like a lot of people who would be interested in running for exec cab are currently in this room, I don't foresee any real issues coming up because we all get along very well with each other. We're all very good at communicating when things are wrong and when things are not happening. And again, I think the solution to conflict that does arise is to have an open dialogue, have communication, figure out what went wrong and how we can take steps to rectify that is a very big thing. That would be a part of my job as helping the president to resolve any possible conflict.
Okay, let's run it back. How would you challenge the president in the position and hold him accountable?
I think that me and Elliot, and me and any of the candidates, but I'll speak specifically to Elliot because that's my running mate. Elliot and I have very good communication with each other, and I feel like I would never be feeling like I wasn't able to bring up any concerns that I had with Elliot or any of the other candidates running for president. I think that my communication skills are high enough that I would be able to navigate those situations well.
I think I would also be a very good fit because I am running individually. I am familiar with every single one of the candidates for president, and I know them well enough that I would be in a space to feel comfortable challenging them because while I think that they're great people, I also think that people are incapable of being imperfect. And when I disagree, I think I'm very good at being like, hey, I don't like this, can we, or hey, this doesn't feel right, or hey, I think, well, this is great, we could add this, or consider changing this. Because I think it's very, very important to be able to have an open dialogue with the president to make sure that you guys are a united front when it comes to dealing with the issues from the Point Park student body.
I think initiative is key within this vice presidential role, right? And what we want to see of you is your past experience as well, despite you guys being 1 or 2 years in the Point Park. Can you describe the project of ideas that was implemented because of your efforts? So did you guys work on any projects? Did you spearhead any projects? How did you make your voice heard?
So 2 projects that I'm finishing up now that it's the end of the year include implementing bulletin boards on the skywalk, so hopefully we'll be seeing that next fall. And that's so that way clubs and students can have their flyers up in locations that are a little bit easier to find in high traffic locations. And then the second initiative that I've been working on is actually something with presidential candidate Riley Hahn. He is no longer here, I don't think. But he is very invested in sustainability, as he mentioned, and so am I. We're working on doing a water bottle recall, so that way when clubs request funding for cases of water bottles, we're not only minimizing plastic waste, but we're also minimizing a small portion of that budget so that all students can get water easier on campus.
One of the projects that I have been trying to get started up as during my time as senator is helping to get renegotiations on the campus book contract, on the campus bookstore contract, because while the Bison Book Bundle and the campus bookstore are both really great options, and I'm very lucky that we have them, there are some issues. Like for example, the Bison Book Bundle, you have to opt out, and it's very expensive for what you're actually getting, because realistically for a lot of classes, you might only need maybe 1 or 2 books. I know during my first semester at Point Park, I only ended up needing 1 textbook, but paid $300 for a single textbook, which is frankly an absurd amount to be paying for a single textbook. And one of the things that I want to do as vice president is get that all rolling and make sure that we actually have a renegotiated contract for incoming freshmen, so that way there's no big panic over, oh, remember to opt out of the Bison Book Bundle so you don't actually spend $300. So that's one of the big things that I would do during my time as a vice president.
Okay. What are some ways that you believe in this vice president position that you can be a moderator between the faculty and staff and student body?
What do I believe?
Like, how would you operate as vice president to moderate between faculty, staff, and the student body, alongside the current administration with Chris Purcell's?
So I think I'm pretty highly organized, and so while we would have a recording secretary, I find I have skills to analyze what the recording secretary would have written down, and then use I'm a business major, and then translate that into business speak to bring forward to the administration. So I think that that's something that plays to my skills pretty well.
I think one of my strengths in terms of communication is that I'm very good at being very polite, I'm very professional, I'm very good at working and interacting with administration, faculty, and staff. So one of my big jobs would be having that privilege and position as vice president to communicate with faculty and staff to figure out how we can bring forward issues from students to the faculty and staff that can actually do something about those issues and figure out, okay, where do we go from here? How can we fix this? Or how can we change this? Or how can we work on this to make sure that the students, because the students and faculty both have the same goal, they both want to have a very good school. They both want to have a great time. They want everyone to have a great time at Point Park. And I think the issue is from just working together to figure out how we get there.
Similar to one of the questions with the president role, what do you see as a realistic goal to get done during your term?
I think that the parking passes can always be improved for that summer initiative. That seems like something that is something easy that we could push forward. But I'm really interested in getting to hear the voices of the students more. Actually, as President Show candidate Riley Hahn was talking about, and just hearing what the students want and pushing those initiatives forward. I think that it's actually a little bit of a conflict of interest for all of the initiatives to come through the president and the vice president, and it should really come from what the students and other senators want.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I think it should really come down to what students actually want to see from us. I think a really interesting initiative that I liked from Christian was bringing in a Pittsburgh student government summit, because there are so many universities in downtown Pittsburgh, and the fact that we barely know what's going on with the Pitt, what's going on over at CCC, or what's going on at Carlisle, the other schools in this area, and I think bringing us all together is a very easy thing to do. It's so we can all figure out, okay, what's happening, compare notes, figure out how to deal with issues that Pittsburgh is facing and how those affect our student governments. Is one of the things. And also, again, the parking initiative would be a very good thing to pull in. The recycled wall walls for clubs, I run a club, so having to constantly make funding requests for water bottles is a waste of plastic, and I think that bringing in reusable bottles for clubs is a very good idea, and a very easy thing to get started.
Okay, bouncing off of that, how do you want to lead the SGA legislative body and mediate senator input effectively and efficiently? In a meeting sense.
Something that I think our current Vice President Dylan Peterson has done a really good job of is just letting people talk and then only really moderating when it gets out of hand. I really like this style of communication on the floor because I think that it allows the senators to really take control of the conversation, only subduing them when it's really necessary.
Yeah, I think, again, Dylan does a really great job of allowing all of the senators to have a say and also like make sure that we don't accidentally go way over time for SGA meetings or accidentally spend a really long time when we have multiple other things in one meeting to get to that we can't really push off. I think he does a really great job of that, and one of the ways I would continue to do that is allow more, like, we already have like open floors and like time and Senate reports, and I think continuing to like facilitate a space where senators feel comfortable speaking their minds on issues that they've heard from like their friends or like in classes or from like faculty and staff. I think continuing to facilitate those spaces is a really important part of that communication.
Again, also one of the questions I asked previously, this is all hearsay unless we see actual proactive action. Realistically, being a student and being a leader in other organizations, how can you realistically say that you can implement these plans into the student body?
Yeah, so I always like to take on a lot of responsibility, but I always know that when I'm going into these things, that if I don't get the support that I need to continue working with these people, then sometimes it's just not feasible. And so going into SGA, if I'm elected, I know that these people have my back and that these people will support me and we will all support each other to get this work done. And so that being said, this organization is one of my top priorities, and I will do what it takes to make this a something that is top of my priority list every single week.
Yeah, if I was elected, SGA would very easily be like the thing I focus on. I would, if I had to, I would lessen other priorities I have. Like maybe if I had to step back a little bit from tabletop, I would be more than willing to do that because SGA is really important to me, and helping to improve Point Park is really important to me, and making sure that freshmen don't feel pressured to transfer because they had like a bad experience here, or freshmen considering dropping out, or freshmen like just leaving because they've had issues here that could have maybe very easily been resolved just by talking to like someone in SGA and seeing what can be done to make sure they don't leave, or like things like that I think are really, really important to doing that. And I would like make sure that as part of me being a vice president, make sure that I took on responsibilities, and I know that I have other people in SGA who would be willing to support me, who I can go to if I have issues. And I think that a very big part of balancing priorities is already having a lot of priorities to get used to figuring out what needs to be done, making the time for the things that matter.
Okay, I'm actually going to open up to the audience right now. Any questions for your candidates? Yes, no, maybe so. Any compliments? Any things you want to see done that you want them to implement?
Will you change my PowerPoint layout?
Yes. I'm going to update the aesthetic for my aesthetic. Sorry, Louis Tomlinson mouse clicker.
The
Goodbye.
mouse is there full time, it's not working.
Yeah, I'm really sorry, but I feel like with the new administration, you should have a new look, new PowerPoints, and I think that if you were to elect me as your vice president, I would definitely update the PowerPoint, even though I think that the current PowerPoint is already really great as is.
Actually, I have a follow-up question for that, which it's not great. Aesthetics is also very important. I think the vice presidential role has some power over this. SGA, the visibility has been visible, but not as much lately. And, you know, with senators, again, they said senator training as well. What would you do to uplift SGA as a whole, marketing-wise, or not so marketing-wise? Like, what would you do personally as vice president to uplift SGA as an organization?
Yeah, Yeah, so recruiting is something that I think is super important, and making sure that there's representatives from every single, like, race, ethnicity, sexuality, all that, but then also like schools and clubs and organizations, and just really making sure that the senator body, and if we have town halls, like that kind of, whoever's showing up to that is a really well-rounded group of people that represent every single type of person on campus. And going out and talking to every single person on campus is one of the ways that I would uphold that and support that and try to get engagement with.
In terms of marketing, I would honestly leave it to graphic design and communications, because whoever is vice president and president, whether or not that's me or that's Madigan or that's Emmy or whoever's president, I trust their judgment. I trust them more than enough to pick out very competent people who know what they're talking about when it comes to like marketing and graphic design. And in terms of non-marketing, again, I'd also very much strongly focus on recruitment, because if it wasn't for the already pretty decent and pretty good recruitment efforts from SGA, I would not be on this stand, on the stage right now, speaking to all of you about why you should choose me as your vice president. And I think another thing that I would do is honestly have more meetings between like club members and SGA, because as a leader of a club, I think there was maybe one instance where I had a meeting with Elliot and Kyle as president and treasurer, and I would like to see more of those and get to know more of the other clubs, because I think it's a genuine issue in general, not just with SJ and not just with the other clubs, that we're all mutually really bad at communicating about events. And one of the things I would help work on as vice president is make sure that we're all more communicative with the student body as a whole, so they know when things are happening.
Dylan?
Yeah, so both of you went to OSGS, and I know a big thing we talked about there was like the structure of other student governments. Are there any specific roles that you think should be added to the SGA that you would work on in your vice presidency?
Yeah, I believe that President Kyle has recently talked about adding organization, like an organization spot on, like within the senators, but keeping that as like a pretty low priority item on a to-do list, that it's not too overwhelming of a role that they would be able to be fully involved in their organization and then also coming to our meetings. And even at the event, I thought that that was a very worthwhile position to add, especially in time back to our last question, where I said that outreach and representation was really important to me. I think that that's a really good initiative of bringing people in.
Again, like having an organizational seat for Kyle specifically mentioned affinity groups with that, like that's who's working groups. I think opening that up to just all student organizations in general, having a representative at SDU would be really helpful for figuring out what issues clubs are facing and how we can improve stuff for clubs on campus. I think another thing that I would take away is that one of the student governments that was at OSGS had the comms committee completely open to non-signers, and I think opening up maybe DI committee to non-signers would help it make it a more diverse committee that's more representative of like different identities and also of the student body at large.
All right, thank you guys. Let's start with our closing statements. I know you guys covered a lot, so under 3 minutes or around 3 minutes, quickly fun.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the 2025-2026 SGA school year happen. I think there are a lot of initiatives that we've talked about today that are probably going to get pushed forward then, that are going to need support. And I believe that if you were to vote me vice president, I'd be able to help organize the existing administration and support the continuing administration, as well as be able to provide support to the president in that like leeway communication between students and the school administration. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, I think if you were to vote for me as vice president, I think I would bring in a very new perspective to Clay Park that is honestly very needed, because a lot of people here are commuters. They're from Pennsylvania. Some of them really don't know what it's like to be from West State and come to a completely new area and have a really new and unique perspective on what's going on in Clay Park. And I think if you elected me, I would do a very good job of representing the freshmen, the lower classmen students, and I'd also do a very good job of representing people who are from out of state, people who provide a new perspective to Point Park that is honestly needed and incorporate their opinions and their viewpoints while supporting whoever is president. And I think that I would do a great good job of that if you elected me as vice president.
All right, thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. That concludes the debate, but I do want Kyle Dillon to come up here to describe to all of us how to vote, when to vote, and just the overall organization of this.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoyed hearing from my potential replacements. Yeah, so voting will open on next Monday, March 31st. We will be putting out Instagram posts, and there will be glass case posters on the walls, and we'll have flyers going out. They will all have a QR code that you will be able to scan, and it will open up a digital form, which will also be sent to you all via mass email. And you will be able to select your preferred candidates for senator positions, senator at large positions, president and vice president. Anything else?
It closes on April 4th at midnight. Please vote in the right amount of time or your vote will not be counted.
I'd also like to add real quick that we have temporarily extended the application for senator positions until midnight tonight. And if you need to take a little extra time, email us and we can see what we can do. But yeah, so please, if you have any interest in joining, we would really appreciate having as many people as possible. I think that with that being said, anything else, Kalia?
No, all good. Thank you guys so much for coming out.
And give it up for Kalyan for being able to be our moderator at the last meeting.
We'll miss Carson greatly.
I can't believe Carson died.
No, that's it.